Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're taking a look at the top 8 deck lists for a 118 player event in Italy, the Goat Capre E Principesse. This event happened a few months ago. I can't remember exactly when, but I remember covering this event during Rise of the Floodborn format, and I remember googling how to say that properly, which I think I remember getting feedback saying was correct. So yes, Capre E Principesse, 118 players, so a big old field. This tournament took place on the 16th of March, but the deck lists only became available yesterday on the 19th. My information, as quite often, comes from inkdex.com, who will be linked down below. Thank you to them for being a fantastic source of information. We have quite a good range of top 8 lists here. It was taken home by Ruby Amethyst. There are 3 Ruby Amethyst lists amongst this top 8, but still quite a diverse set of inks, so let's jump in and take a look at the lists. Are you looking for some singles to finish that Lorcana deck? Then you should check out Cardmarket, your saucy teapot, for all of your trading card game needs. So in first place, as I said, it was taken by Ruby Amethyst. We got some Queen's Control. If you're just running the 4 Queen's Castle, I think that's how we'll differentiate in terms of deck names. But yeah, I really like this list. Opting for 4 Rafiki, Mystical Fighter to be able to hit that magical 3 number. Also opting for the 3 copies of Chernobog's Followers to help us fin our deck, draw more cards when we want to. And more players opting to play these sort of like more useful cards rather than the 1/3s, which obviously is going to be better if you've got a lot of mirror matches. Or to be fair, like the mirror match is going to have Teeth and Ambition, so you might get punished. But if you're not expecting a lot of Steel Amber, really is the most notable for the turn 1 Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, turn 2 Let the Storm Rage On. In a field with less of that, then I think this is good to have like one of your characters being able to hit harder, and the other one just being a bit more diverse in the fact that it can draw you cards. We've got 3 copies of Kuzco, Wanted Llama to be some more card drawing to help us pressure the board a little more. 4 Snake, 4 Fox, 4 Rabbit, 4 Goat, just 1 copy of Merlin Crab here, which I think is fine. 4 copies of Maleficent, which I wish I'd played in my tournament. Just max out on the draw, especially for the mirror. It really helps. 4 copies of Maui for the board control, and of course works with the Maui's fish hook that we've got down here, which can make our characters stronger or give us evasive. 3 copies of Madame Medusa to hit those targets that have 3 strength or less. Personally, I'm moving towards wanting 1 Tremaine in this list, but I still think it's fine without. 3 copies of Maleficent. I love the 2 Dragons Fire. I think this is such an important piece. And to be fair, this can help you warrant not needing to run a Tremaine, although I'm liking the idea of running 2 Dragons Fire, 1 Tremaine. But 2 Dragons Fire, I'm a big fan of. We are running the 3 Teeth and Ambitions to punish aggro decks and to punish opponents that may be playing Chernobog's Followers, Rafikis. Maybe we can snipe the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella before it gets too much value. 4 Friends on the other side, 4 Be Prepared. And then, yes, 4 copies of the Queen's Castle. 1 to move there, 7 Willpower. At the start of your turn, draw a card for every character here, and of course 2 passive lore gain. So again, another pretty cookie cutter Ruby Amethyst list. No Tremaines. Gyms are very rare in current Ruby Amethyst lists. And this, it's just a matter of are you running 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 Queen's Castle. But yeah, deck looks really good. Led them to first place in a big old field, so congratulations to them. And second place was also taken by Ruby Amethyst. In this list, we are seeing the 4 Rafiki, we're seeing the 4 Mini, so a bit more protection against Teeth and Ambition, Storm Rage On, etc. We're also seeing 2 copies of Biding Her Time Maleficent, which I may have potentially thought was a mistake, but there are 3 copies of the Sorcerer's Maleficent here. And to be fair, like, there's no real reason to call this a mistake. I think it's perfectly reasonable. It's just some extra lore at the beginning of the game. It's an extra 1 drop to get you online, get you playing the game, get your bounce mechanic stuff active. And again, it's just that early lore, and especially in the mirror, it can be so close. Like we talk about Spellbook being the mirror breaker. So sometimes if you're able to get 1, maybe even 2 quests out of Maleficent at the beginning of the game, that just might give you the lead that you need. 2 copies of the Kuzco. This deck playing 2 copies of the Pinocchio Talkative Puppet. I'm not very talkative myself today, apparently. Well, I am. I'm just not doing a very good job of it. Previous deck not playing this, but most Ruby Amethysts are just to exert characters and give you some nice control. And, of course, we can reuse the ability. The 4 Fox, the 4 Rabbit, the 4 Goat, 3 copies of Crab here, which I ran myself, and I ended up finding that 2 probably would have been fine. But I respect the 4 trail going into it. 3 copies of Maleficent. The 4 Maui. We are seeing 1 copy of Lady Tremaine here alongside the 2 Madame Medusa. But no Maleficents and no Dragon's Fires. Just opting for the ladies in red. 3 Teeth and Ambitions. 4 Friends. Just 3 copies of Be Prepared, which I do get, you know, like with a lot of Ursula around. you always throw it away in the mulligan anyway, but you want to minimize your chances of drawing another one. At the same time, if they do hit one, like, you want more in your deck as options, but I kind of get the 3, but I'm sticking at 4 myself. But I respect it. 1 copy of Spellbook, 2 Mary's Fishhook, and once again seeing the 4 Queen's Castle. So yeah, a little bit more aggro here. This deck running the Pinocchio, a higher crab count, no Maleficents, no Dragon's Fires, but deck looks good. Congratulations to them. And in top 4, our last Ruby Amethyst list, but with some spice. We are once again seeing the 4 Chernobog's Followers and the 4 Rafiki as our 1-drops. We're seeing the 4 Snake, the 4 Fox, 4 Rabbit, 4 Goat, 3 copies of Crab, 3 Maleficent, where we've on 3 Talkative Puppet Pinocchio here, which I don't hate. 4 Maui, 3 Madame Medusa, 2 Maleficent, and 1 Dragon's Fire. No Tremaines, but I think that's fine. I think this is a nice lineup. 4 Friends, 4 Be Prepared, 1 Spellbook, 2 Maui's Fishhook, 3 copies of the Queen's Castle, and we are seeing 3 copies of Pinocchio's Conscience, Jiminy Cricket. Holy cricket, Batman. 2 cost Inkable, 1/2, Quest for 1, Evasive, and that still small voice. When you play this character, if you have a character named Pinocchio in play, you may draw a card. So drawing cards is king. Obviously this explains the higher count of Pinocchio, although to be fair, I've seen Ruby Amethyst decks that are not playing Jiminy Cricket that are going for 3 Pinocchio, because it can just be really good, and in some games it's an important piece to see early. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to play the 3 anyway, I suppose you have not bad odds of, seeing these together so that you can get your +1. And hey, if you get your +1, it's done its job at the end of the day. We play Maleficent just because it's a +1. This is cheaper. It's got the same willpower, obviously 1 less strength, but we don't often care about Maleficent's strength. Sometimes it matters, but it's not really why she's here. And you're evasive anyway, so you could, if they don't have an answer, you could cheat out a few lore. It's similar to why some Ruby Amethyst are playing the Pascal count as well. Just early game, you're able to cheat lore out quicker than your opponent in the mirror especially, and then sometimes that can just be the lead you need. So yeah, interesting. I don't hate it by any means. In fact, I'm a big fan of seeing it, but in terms of do I actually think it's good? I think it's okay, and hey, it made top 4. This person led it to a good result. So yeah, congratulations. Really happy to see Jiminy Cricket. And next up in top 4, we've got Amethyst Steel Queen's Mid-Range. So an Amethyst Steel deck that's not opting to go the Jafar route, which is perfectly reasonable. Amethyst Steel, just as a control mid-range deck, is still just really good. We are running the 4 copies of Queen's Castle as our lone location. 4 copies of Captain Hook as a nice 1-drop that checks opponents with that magic 3 number. We've got a 4/4 line of Robin Hood, again a 1-drop, and we're playing Amethyst, so we've got all bounce cards that require this 1-drop or benefit from them. But yeah, obviously the Floodborn. Shift 3, if you banish a character in a challenge, gain 2 lore, and if you are banished in a challenge, you can draw a card. And obviously the 3 strength kind of sucks because gets hit by Medusa, but the 6 willpower is nice, keeps you out of and then along came Zeus range. 4 copies of the Blue Fairy, kind of the heart of the soul of the deck really. 2 cost Inkable, 1/1 evasive, Quest for 1, and Ethereal Glow. When you play a Floodborn, you can draw a card. So that's our Floodborn, Robin Hood that we just mentioned, Champion of Sherwood. We are playing 4 copies of the Jafar Dreadnought, who draws a card when he banishes a character in a challenge, and this stat line is really nice, being a 3/4 keeps you out of a lot of things range. When you're quite often you can take out something with your 3 strength, and the 4 willpower quite often means you'll survive it and get to stick around and do more. 4 Tragic Hero Beast for the card draw, running 3 copies of Giant Fairy Tinkerbell, and 2 copies of Yzma. So lots of Floodborns here that are going to help us draw cards and just have card count. More important than ever because this particular deck choosing not to run a whole new world. So our draw cards are our Maleficent, our Rabbit, and our Blue Fairy, and the Beast if we can get that to stick. But that's not as reliable. You know, you've got good odds of knowing that you're drawing. You can play down Blue Fairy and then immediately play a Floodborn, so you know you're getting the draw. And obviously Rabbit and Maleficent, you're always getting it. So that's our reliable card draw. 4 copies of Mr. Smee, a very aggressive quester, really cheap. 3/3 stat line is really nice, and we do have the Captain, which can help us subvert the ability, but if we don't, it doesn't matter. It's just a great piece. Only 3 copies of Madame Mim Fox. I never love seeing this as a 3 because I just think sometimes it's just a really important piece, especially when you're not playing with Ruby, so you don't have access to Maui. But 3 copies here. 4 Maleficent maxing out on the draw. We're playing 3 copies of Benja. When you play this character, you may banish a chosen item, respecting the Fishbone Quill, the Sorcerer's Spellbook. There's some Sleepy's Flute about. Lucky Dimes, obviously, so lots of uses for Benja. As I mentioned, the 4 Rabbit for the draw. We've talked about these Floodborns. Obviously, Tink for great spread damage and board control. Yzma can remove a target or just bounce one of our own characters back to draw extra cards. So lovely, lovely, lovely. 3 copies of Strength of Raging Fire. We've got a nice wide board. We can do some big numbers with this, and it's singable. 3 copies of And Then Along Came Zeus. He hurled his thunderbolt. Sometimes it just strikes me like a thunderbolt and I have to go with it. Fantastic removal card, diverse hitting locations as well, and again, being able to sing this is really nice. 3 copies of Grab Your Swords for some more chip damage around the board. So yeah, pretty standard Amethyst Steel, just mid-range outside of Jafar decks. You know, it doesn't need it. I mean, the Dreadnought's just nice to play because it's a good card in and of itself, and it's a Floodborn that triggers our Blue Fairy, and its 4 is pretty cheap for it. So yeah, really strong deck. Huge congratulations to this person. And then for our top 8, we've got 4 completely different ink combinations. First of all, we've got Lorenzo with some Steel Amber FluteSong, recently putting in a lot of work in the last couple of tournaments, online tournaments hosted by the Pack. And won the big event at Charlie's Collectible Show, a 21 uninkable version of Steel Amber. So it's definitely on more people's radars. But yeah, taking advantage of the Sleepy's Flute, if we played a song that turn, we can tilt it to gain a lore. And if you've got multiple flutes, that's multiple lore. Lots of songs here to take advantage of. 2 copies of the Bare Necessities to obviously snipe away those Be Prepared, those Grab Your Swords, whatever song we don't want them singing. 3 copies of Let the Storm Rage On for chip damage plus drawing a card. We've got the 3 Strength of Raging Fire, the 3 Along Came Zeus, liking seeing more of these at a 3. Such an important piece. We are playing the 4 Whole New World here. We are a Steel Amber song deck. We want to be wheeling as much as possible and like taking advantage of all these characters that can sing these songs cheap. Same as Grab Your Swords. And then we've got 4 copies of the Ballroom Sensation Cinderella who can sing these songs nice and cheap and act as a shift target for 2 copies of Stout-Hearted Cinderella. 5/5, quest for 3, resist 2, and when you play a song you can challenge ready characters. So lots of synergy here. We are running a 4/4 Stitch line with the Adoring Fans. When we play a character with 2 cost or less, we can exert them to draw a card. 16 targets here for this, so that's lots of Adoring Fans, hopefully lots of card draws going on, flooding the board, and he's just an aggressive quester. We're running 4 copies of Kida Bodyguard, not seeing the Floodborn in here, which some people would play in this list, just because it's another cheap, quick singer that you can get out, but just playing this, this could quite easily have been a Simba, but if you're going to play one or the other, even if you're not playing the Floodborn, you should always play this version, because then your opponent's got to at least respect that you might have the Floodborn even if you're not playing it. So yeah, for that reason alone, if it's just a choice between do I run Kida or do I run Simba in my Steel Amber list, always go with Kida, just because then they have to respect that as an option. 4 copies of Ariel to find songs and sing them cheap with that nice Singer 5 ability, which is also being used by our boy Gaston, who's a 3-cost inkable 3/3 quest for 1, and yeah, just Singer 5 again, cheap singer. Get this Whole New World, this Grab Your Swords, this early Along Came Zeus going as quick as we can. 2 Benja for the item removal. We are running 2 copies of Rapunzel for some more card draw, so we're not completely reliant on a Whole New World, and just 3 copies of Beast Tragic Hero, which I think is perfectly fine. This was cut completely in the list that won Charlie's Collectible Shows, and like you can kind of understand why. It's just not reliable. But if it can stick, if they don't have an answer to remove it or damage it, then you're gonna get a lot of card draw for this. And it's nice for Steel Amber to be able to either go the route of a Whole New World or use Beast of Rapunzel, because often when you see that you're facing Steel, some players will play out their hand quite carelessly, just because they're expecting the Whole New World, and then if you can then avoid using it by just playing Rapunzels and Beasts, then you can watch your opponent like really regret that they played so hard into the assumption that you were going to play it. So yeah, Steel Amber songs doing well once again. Another top placement. I think this is going to get more and more popular, so I definitely don't think this is the time to be playing aggro decks. Although I say that, you know, Zach Bivens at the Charlie Collectible Shows event took that, but I think that was still at the early stages of people like starting to think, oh, we should probably go back to Steel Amber. It's probably quite well positioned. But yeah, fantastic deck and a fantastic run from Lorenzo. So congratulations to them. This channel is also sponsored by Whatnot. If you're not already a Whatnot customer, you can sign up using my link to get £10 off your first purchase. Next up, we've got Marco with some Ruby Sapphire McDuck Mana control. One thing worth noting straight away is this list is not taking advantage of the very fashionable Lucky Dime as it is at the moment. Instead, just taking advantage of just good old-fashioned, lots of control and lots of ramp. So we've got 4 copies of Queen of Hearts with the Rush 2/2 because this deck has a really slow first couple of turns and it's good to be able to respond to aggro and just have some semblance of board control. We've got 2 copies of Judy Hops for the item removal, respecting the Fishbone Quills, the Flutes, all those items we mentioned. We are playing 2 copies of Belle, Strange but Special, who can ramp extra cards from our hand with Read a Book, but most importantly, my favourite part, if you've got 10 or more cards in your Inkwell, she becomes a 5 questing character. I think playing Belle and not playing the Dime is a little strange, personally, if you're going to play the Bells. I feel like she benefits so much. I feel like she's so much better in a Dime-based deck. But fair enough, we've got the 4 copies of Grand Martala, just to be some more card draw. It's what this deck suffers with the most. Flavisham hopefully is going to do most of be our drawing machine and get most of our card advantage for us, but sometimes you don't hit him, or sometimes he's just removed after just 1 pop of the draw 2. So it's nice to have other cards that can let us find pieces that we need. For Maui, we're seeing a 2/2 of Tremaine and Medusa, which I really like. This looks like a lot of removal here. We're also seeing the 1 Scar, 2 Hades, and 3 Maleficent. So lots of removal. You should be able to when you get to that mid to late stage of the game, you should have ramped high enough. You should hopefully consistently have answers for things. 2 copies of Tamatoa. To take advantage of the items, not many, the 4 Portugal, the 2 Maui's Hook, and the 4 Fishbone Quill, but that's enough items to get value out of Tamata. But again, another reason why I'm surprised not to see 1 Lucky Dime here. 3 Maleficent, as I mentioned. We are seeing 3 copies of Nothing to Hide, just to get some more information, find out if they've got the removal, just scout what they're going to do and plan your turn appropriately. And of course, we draw a card for playing it. 3 1 Jump Ahead for the ramp, 3 copies of Half Hour Go, which is not only ramp, but it's helping us particularly, hopefully you're not going +1 off of it, but hopefully you're finding a piece that you need. 3 Let It Go for some more removal, the 4 Be Prepared, the items as I mentioned, and of course the 4 McDuck Mana. So yeah, I'd love a Dime in this deck, to be honest. But other than that, looks really good. 11 to top 8, so congratulations to Marco. Next up, definitely Mufasa has been my favourite deck since I started playing it in Rise of the Floodborn. I've always been a big fan of how this plays, and I've been playing some Mufasa myself recently. I expect a video on Mufasa at some point. But yeah, I've been playing a lot with it. I took the deck that Brennan, the player who won the first pack event for Chapter 3, and then in the second pack event for Chapter 3, made top 16 with a Mufasa list. And I've made a couple of changes to their list, but mostly based it off of theirs. This list opting to go a different way, playing the 4 Teeth and Ambitions, and a lot of these lower drops. Like we've got 3 copies of Mini here, we've got the 4 Simba, because just this deck can have a really bad early game against aggro. Important to get rid of the Blue Fairy as well, which can be difficult. Stop them getting so much card advantage if they're playing like Amethyst Steel, and especially like if they're not playing the Whole New World, because sometimes we want them to Whole New World. But yeah, a slightly different build to what I've been playing, making sure that we've got a nice low end so that we can consistently take advantage of Teeth and Ambitions as our only song. But yeah, of course, the 4 Mufasa, who's going to replace himself with a character off the top of the deck when he's banished, if it is a character, which it should be. We've got good odds, only 4 songs seems fine. We are running a 3/4 Rockstar Stitch line, which I was not a big fan of in set 2. Tested it a lot and I ended up cutting it and going a different way. But I haven't tried it in Chapter 3 format, into the Inklings format. And hey, I said I wasn't a big fan. Not that it's bad by any stretch. You can get value off of it, and of course Stitch is just an aggressive quester, and we are just a mid-range aggro deck anyway. So yeah, the Stitch line, the minis as I mentioned, the Simba, which the bodyguard can be useful, very much so, but also another character that we can work with Teeth and Ambitions. Mother Gothel to work the Rapunzel as one of our only forms of card draw in this deck, along with Surfer Stitch, who comes online a little bit later. We've got 4 copies of Doc to hopefully achieve our turn 4 5 drop. 3 copies of Prince Eric, who I really like in this deck. Nice aggressive quester and gives you some more control. 4 Mauis for some board control. Also seeing 3 copies of Hydra. 6 cost uninkable, 6/5 quest for 2, and watch the teeth. Whenever this character is dealt damage, deal that much damage to chosen opposing character. So obviously really strong against steel. And I think I saw a tweet from this person saying that Hydra was the MVP for them over the run. I've not been playing Hydra in my build, but I keep wanting to because I do really like Hydra. And I tried Hydra in my like day 1 of chapter 3 list of Mufasa. It was the first deck I tested because I was really excited to try set 3 Mufasa, and I really liked Hydra. I've moved away from him in my current build just to test, but I could see myself going back to it because it is a really strong card. The 4-Lady Tremaine, I'm a big fan of Tremaine in Mufasa. I still like having a count of Madame Medusa for those things like Beast, but I don't hate a high Tremaine count by any means. The 4 Stitch, as I said, 3 Maleficent. So yeah, deck looks really good. A slightly different way of playing Mufasa. Because I'm a big fan of the Tinkerbell. I've been trying the Peter Pan as well, the 3-cost 1/3 quest for 2, and he's got Rush, and he gets +2 strength if there's a Tinkerbell on the field. And the Tinkerbell is fantastic. I'm such a big fan of Tinkerbell in this deck. So I at least wanted to try out Peter Pan because obviously it's got good synergy. Like if you can have Tinkerbell and become a Rush, a 3/3 character with Rush, questing for 2 sounds pretty good. In my testing, there's nothing that Peter Pan has done so far that Mini Stylish Surfer could not have done better. But the Peter Pan gives you another aggro response, but this deck doesn't really need that aggro response because it's got Teeth and Ambitions, it's got the Minis, the Simbas, so it's got a bit of a better game against them. So Stylish Surfer, definitely the way to go for this build. But yeah, big fan of this deck, congratulations to them. And for our final top 8 list, we've got some Amber Emerald Royal Discard. Now this deck looks weird to me. First off, we have got 2 copies of the Pride Lands, 2-cost uninkable, 2 to move there, 7 willpower, 1 passive lore gain. Characters get +2 willpower while here is the first ability. We are all connected. And Lion Home. If you have a prince or king character here, you pay 1 less ink to play characters. So, don't get me wrong, this is probably on the thumbnail. I've probably clickbaited the hell out of the Pride Lands. But, really happy to see it. But, it just feels weird, right? We are playing 3 copies of the Royal Duke, who gives +1 strength to our prince, princesses, kings, and queens. So we've got 4 copies of Ballroom Sensation Cinderella, who is a princess, and she can be a cheap singer for these songs, which we'll go through all of these songs, which we'll go through in a minute. We've got 4 copies of Bodyguard Simba, who can become a 3/3. We've got the 4 copies of Flynn Charming Rogue, who becomes a 2/2. Prince John becomes a 2/2. And of course, his own biggest fan, Flynn Rider, the Floodborn, becomes a 3/3. I don't hate Grand Duke by any means. The couple of times we've seen him, I've always been glad. He's a good math fixer that can matter. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate the Ring the Bells. Like, we have no way of doing chip ourselves, but the idea is, like, we expect them to be regularly challenging into us. So if their bigger bodies are challenging into our Cinderella, our Simba, our Flynn, whatever, and we're just doing 1 passive, 1 damage, then Ring the Bells can be useful. We've got 2 copies of Sir Hiss to be an evasive answer, which I think is fine. He's cheap, hits the 3 that we need for things like minis. So whether it's the best use of spaces, I don't know, but I get the inclusion. 4 Ursula is pretty standard. 3 Kit Cloud Kicker I think is a good call. And we are running 4 copies of Prince John, who has Ward. And whenever your opponent discards a card, we can draw a card for each card discarded. So in that vein, we've got 3 copies of You Have Forgotten Me, which in itself is just dirty. Each opponent chooses and discards 2 cards. We've got 3 copies of Be Our Guest to help us find key pieces, which I think a lot of the time is probably either Prince John or your own biggest fan, because I think this deck just puts so much on Flynn Rider. I mean, the Baby One quest for 2, the Prince John quest for 2, although you're probably not doing that unless you've already emptied their hand. But yeah, I think your actual questing, so much of it has got to come from Flynn. So you definitely need to be able to find that. 4 copies of Bare Necessities, obviously it's more discard and getting rid of those Be Prepared, those Grab Your Swords, those important pieces, Whole New Worlds. 2 copies of Strike a Good Match, which can work really well with Cinderella. She can sing it nice and cheap and just help us dig and find pieces. Sudden Chill for more discard, and 4 Mother Knows Best for board disruption. So I don't know, man, like, it's got all the pieces to, like, control the board, discard, and for Hypnotize as well. I'd love to know how much value this person got from the Pride Lands. And I don't know, I just feel like if I was going to go Amber Emerald, I feel like my instinct would be, I'd just go Bucky. because along with his own biggest fan, you could play a Keeda line. There's a 1-drop in Amber, and there's obviously the Floodborn. You could play that. You could play a Queen line. You could play a Stitch line, and the Queen would work with Grand Duke as well. So like, I just feel like and maybe even Lucifer. I just feel like I'd go a different way. But again, I haven't tried this version, or don't think I've come up against it. So I shouldn't judge. I just feel like instinctively that's the way I would have built this. But it led them to top 8. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying I know if it's right or not, but I'm just happy to see the Pride Lands make a top cut. But yeah, I bet this was annoying to face against. I mean, You Have Forgotten Me does a lot of the work there. But yeah, led them to top 8, so huge congratulations to this person. And that's it for the top 8 deck lists for the 118 player event in Italy, the Goat Capre E Principesse. I love the Italian language, man. Like, I'm not even sucking up to the Italians. If I could learn one other language, it would probably be Italian. Like, it's just beautiful, right? And here I am butchering it. But yeah, a nice big field. Once again, first and second taken by Ruby Amethyst, but I think that quite easily could have gone another way. A nice diverse other set of inks in that top 8. And yeah, get your Pride Lands. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit the like button to show your support, and we'll see you soon.